For those who seek adventure, this is the Buffalo Roamer Podcast, sharing the people, places, and moments that make a life on the loose worth living.
The thing that's going to stick out to you most is when they open up that plane door. The cold is something like you've never felt.
The jungle is so thick. Even if you had a machete, you couldn't get through it.
There's a huge blonde grizzly bear. And when it saw us, this thing put its head down, stomped on the ground, and hissed like an alligator.
I just crossed this brutal stretch of desert, and I was really suffering.
I'm your host, Will Collins. I'm an adventurer, outdoorsman, and roamer of wild places. I've backpacked the Brooks Range, rafted the Grand Canyon, and have canoed from source to sea, both the Mississippi and Yukon rivers. I live for adventure, travel, fresh air, and diving into the unknown. And now, I hope to share my passion with you on the Buffalo Roamer Podcast. Here we go, episode 95. Thanks for tuning in. Thank you to Fischel Paddles, to Soda Peak Outfitters, and to SREgear.com. Today's episode is with John Ruskey. John is a man of the Mississippi River, if I've ever seen one. He is the owner and helps run Quapaw Canoe Company down in Clarksdale, Mississippi. He is the creator and helped author Rivergator.com, Rivergator.org, which is a paddler's guide to the lower Mississippi River, as well as wildmiles.org, which helps detail the wild miles of lower Mississippi. So enjoyed my conversation with John Ruskey, and hope you do too, on episode 95 of Buffalo Roamer Outdoors. John, we were chatting just a little bit here before we started, but you're down in Clarksdale, Mississippi, huh?
That is correct. Down in the depths of the Mississippi Delta, which came to creation after the melting of the last ice age. This used to be a embayment of the Gulf of Mexico, and was refilled by all that glacial silt being carried down when the Laurentide ice cap, which covered you and all of the rest of everything north of you, and then melted, and all that silt came downstream and created this landscape down here with a big river running through the middle of it all. And we're located kind of in the heart of that. And Clarksdale is best known for its the blues tradition, which is very vibrant here. There's a long history of it, but it's also been very vibrantly kept alive through a lot of musicians and programs.
That's awesome, man. I'm looking forward to chatting all kinds of things. I know about your program there kind of vaguely, just through whereabouts, a couple things. I know our friend here wrote The Great River, Boyce Upholt, connected us via email. He writes about you in his book, and I paddled the river, paddled it in 2016, and use some of your Rivergator stuff, your Rivergator maps and information. So I'm looking forward to chatting about all of that. But since you brought up the blues in Clarksdale, Mississippi, I read that you are involved in like a blues museum. Is that right? Delta Blues Museum?
I was, yeah. I was a curator of the Delta Blues Museum in the 1990s.
Okay.
And then left the museum in 98 and started Quapaw Canoe Company.
Okay, awesome. And I imagine, when I was in, I was a northern boy here. When I was in Natchez is where it really hit home for me when I was paddling the river. I stopped in Natchez a few nights, and just the blues seeping into the culture and like into the river from Natchez, and all the little bars right along there. I stayed a few nights and just like popped into them and heard some great music, and you could still feel the blues culture kind of seep through everything. At least I could.
Yeah. 2016, did you come through Clarksdale?
I did not. No, I didn't stop in Clarksdale, I don't believe.
In April and May of 2016, we had catastrophic flooding on the Sunflower River, which is a tributary of the Mississippi down here. And 17 inches of rain fell in a 48-hour period in April of 2016.
Holy cow. And actually,
what year What month were you paddling?
Now that I'm saying that, even John, I think it was 2017 that I did it, and it was in August. I think it was 2017. I did it in August, and I thought it was a great time to do it. As I was doing it, I was like chasing the fall line all the way from like Minnesota, through essentially like St. Louis. And I was just like right on the line of all the trees that were turning. It was beautiful.
Oh, wow.
And
I'm glad you missed 2016.
Yeah, I guess so. I'm glad too. There's bad flooding this year too, right?
Not here.
Okay.
Up in the upper Miss, yes, but not down here. It's we've had more water than we had last year and the year before, which were historic low water years. So low that it rivaled some of the lowest levels ever recorded on the Mississippi down here.
It's funny how that works,
this
isn't
year,
it?
This year it's come up a little bit more from all the rain up north.
Yeah.
But not anyway. It's still not even like halfway level, medium water we call it.
Yeah, I know up in the upper river there, they were having some serious flooding, not quite historic levels, but it was pushing. It was quite high up there. It's funny how that can work, the same river system.
Yeah.
So you've paddled the river, you've done a through paddle yourself?
I was just going to say one thing, that we get most of our water from the Ohio basin. And like 2/3 of our water comes down the Ohio River. So I think St. Paul had some of the highest levels, amongst the highest 10 highest water levels. But it doesn't translate down here because it all gets absorbed into the giant valley down here. I first paddled the Mississippi on it. Well, I rowed it on a 12 by 24 foot raft back in the 80s. After high school graduation, my best friend and I built a handcrafted raft from, we were dumpster diving in La Crosse, Wisconsin, but we actually built the raft on the other side of the river because the owner of the tavern in La Crosse, Shimshak's Tavern, he said we could build it on his property, and he lived on the Minnesota side, up above La Crosse. So we actually constructed the raft on a beach behind his place, and put in there, and 5 months later we're down here on the lower river, and that was my first experience on the Mississippi.
Quite a time, huh?
Forever changed my life. Led directly to where I am today, and almost took my life 3 times on that trip alone. And but for some reason, the river kept us alive, sustained us, wrecked us, and then saved us. I mean, we literally ended up in February of 1983. We started in 82, but it took us, we were paddling through the fall into the winter. And in February of 1983, we ended up shipwrecked on the first big island south of Memphis. You might remember it's called Cat Island.
Yes.
And it's one of those big islands. People often stop there because it's a beautiful island. And that was that became our refuge. We were literally muddy refugees in the middle of the big river.
Wow. and
that drove the river deep down into my toes and into my ears, and as we swam, we were in the water for a long time, and hypothermic too, and deep down into filtered through into my blood and into my heart, and 10 years later I returned and never left after that.
And that was to Clarksdale?
Yeah. Yeah, the double header of music and blues music and the river, that crossroads captured my imagination and then captured my heart, and I ended up staying here. Been living here since 1991.
And A, I want to ask about Quapaw Canoe and start getting into all of that. But B, tell me more about this shipwreck. I mean, what happened to the raft, and how did you end off of it?
Yeah, we don't know. It all floated downstream. We got washed up on that big island, Cat Island, and had to let go of everything except for a few things we were able to hold on to. Amongst was waterproof matches, so we were able to get a fire going and save ourselves that way, because we were literally hypothermic, shivering so bad, that we were kind of at that happy state where whatever happens is great, that they talk about when you get hypothermic,
Sure. Man.
But 15 miles upstream at the mouth of McKellar Lake, there used to be a tower. It was located right in the middle of the river that supported TVA power line from the power plant on the industrial harbor of Memphis. It's called McKellar Lake. And the power lines are still there, but they took out that tower, 350-foot tall tower, as a hazard to navigation, which we definitely proved because it wrecked us.
Wow, that's what did it? Was the power line?
The tower.
Tower, okay.
It supported the power lines. Yeah.
Jeez.
So the tower is gone. We're still here.
And so tell me about Quapaw Canoe Company and what you do. What's the story, and what do you do down there?
Quapaw Canoe Company is a mission-directed business run by a team of river rats who are dedicated to creating access to the great wild lower Mississippi River. And we build canoes and paddle them, big canoes, Voyager style, 29-foot long canoes, and provide experiences for anyone who has any interest. For the sake of our queen, we have dedicated ourselves to the Queen Mississippi River, and we are her worker bees. We do whatever we can to promote the health of the hive and keep the queen happy, and that includes water quality and wetlands protection, species biodiversity, and inclusion for all. And one of the things that we do is an annual summer camp for high school youth, kids from impoverished neighborhoods. It's open to anybody, but we focus on the youth who have grown up in the Mississippi Delta, who don't have an opportunity to go to a traditional summer camp in the Great North Woods or Maine or Washington State, those places that a lot of us grew up through summer camp somewhere. And but that opportunity doesn't extend to families that don't have the money to send their kids out. And so what we do is we have 1 week for boys and 1 week for girls. And if we have more sign up, then we're going to do 2 weeks for boys, 2 weeks for girls. It's a growing thing. And we partner with the Lower Mississippi River Foundation, which is a nonprofit that I founded in 2011, actually for the River Gator project, which you used to get down the river, the Paddler's Guide. But then we changed our mission after the River Gator project was completed. We are now dedicated to long-term stewardship of the Lower Mississippi River for the youth who live along the river.
That's amazing. That's a hell of a mission, and I think a noble one. So yeah, thanks for doing that. Tell me a little bit about how that goes and what that experience is like. There's so many questions I got. Starting from the canoes, making them the Voyager style, B, to the experiences that these children have, and also I'm still interested to talk about the River Gator stuff. But I guess let's start with the canoes. Why Voyager canoes? And tell me about the process of making a 29-foot canoe that you're going to float on the Mighty Miss.
Mm-hmm. Well, why? Because they come from the Voyager tradition of the Great Lakes, actually, that the French perfected so many hundred years ago during the beaver craze. And the French took their design from the traditional birch bark canoe of the North Woods that the native people had perfected over thousands of years of trial and error. And it's one of the most efficient designs of any vessel ever designed by mankind anywhere in the world. It's so good. It's such a great design that people still build canoes using that same design or some minor elaboration of it. And what the French did is they made them bigger. And they took the native design, they built the canoes bigger, longer, so they could get those beaver pelts down to Quebec City and over onto the sailing ships and over to Europe. Well, when the first white guys came down the river, Joliet and Marquette, and then later LaSalle, they were in canoes like the ones that we build. And so they have a long tradition on the big waters of North America. And when I started Quapaw Canoe Company, I started researching that tradition, and I discovered Ralph Fries, who, have you ever heard of Ralph?
I have, yes.
He's a master canoe builder who passed away.
Recently, not too long ago, huh? A few years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a couple of years ago. Chicagoland Canoe Base was his base of operations. His father was a blacksmith, and his logo was a canoe on top of a horse-pulled wagon. Like the kind that his father and his grandfather used as a blacksmith, And but Ralph dedicated himself to the canoe tradition, and he became North America's expert on the big canoe. And I was lucky enough in the late 90s to seek him out and to find him responsive and in old style kind of way. He's very he's old style, definitely. It was like, well, you want to learn to build a canoe? Here's what you need to read. He had me go to history books first, and because that's where everything began, was hundreds of years ago.
That's neat.
But he guided me through the construction of the first stripper canoe. So we build Voyager style canoes in the stripper method, which just means strips of wood that are all formed together, glued together on a mold that is in the shape of the traditional Voyager canoe, and then we pop it off the mold and protect the wood with a fiberglass and epoxy resin as a permanent, very strong protection, both inside and out. And the favored wood for canoe builders in North America is the western red cedar.
Okay.
But down here, we have cypress trees. And so we use cypress, Louisiana bald cypress, which has similar properties as the cedar. And fashion the strips of wood and glue them together and create the whole of this beautiful canoe. It has sweeping lines, everything about it's beautiful, high ends, a beautiful tumble home, and a big belly, like almost 5 feet wide. And then we add gunnels and seats and decks on either end. There's protected places on either end, and the seats double as thwarts. There's so many seats in these canoes, you don't need thwarts.
Hey, it's Will here. Want to take a moment to let you know about today's sponsor, SREgear.com. SRE Gear is a family-owned and operated outdoor gear shop in Black River Falls, Wisconsin, and they have everything you need for your next adventure. Whether you're camping, backpacking, hiking, paddling, or just getting out there and exploring, SREgear.com has the gear you need to get you to those places you love. I recently picked up a new Garmin InReach from SRE. I needed a new communication device for the guided canoe trips I've been leading, and after talking through a few options with the owner, Nick, there, he helped me sort out what I needed and get squared away. And that's one of the things that sets SREgear.com apart is the unbeatable customer service. Call or email with any questions, and you'll talk with the owner, Nick, or someone there close to him. So before you go and buy any outdoor equipment from a big box store, be sure to check out family-owned and operated SREgear.com, and be sure to use the discount code WILL at checkout for 10% off your first purchase. That's discount code WILL at checkout for 10% off. SREgear.com. Great gear, great prices, unbeatable customer service. And how many people in one canoe?
The 29-footer, we outfit them for 14, seating for 14. But we don't usually have more than like 6 to 8 people for like our longer trips, which is mostly what we do is long distance paddling on the Mississippi.
And what's like the minimum? I would like. Could you do it with 2 people, 4 people, 6 people? What's an ideal?
If you had 2 strong paddlers in calm conditions, you could paddle it with 2 people.
Wow.
And the beauty of this canoe is that just like any other canoe, you have to have one person who knows what they're doing, and but everyone else in the canoe could be beginner. And we can literally take a whole group of kids who've never paddled before, like 10 kids if we're doing a day trip, and teach them how to do, that single forward stroke and maybe backstroke, maybe draw stroke. And but within 5 minutes, they learn forward stroke and or at least a rudiment, the motion of it. And we can set off on the biggest river in North America and have a great adventure, get to a big island, and then come back and do it safely, and predictably. With these big canoes, they're kind of like getting in a big bus, except that everyone is a participant in the progress. So in that way, they become these great vessels for education, teamwork, and democracy. The democracy is literally practiced in the balance of the canoe, and everyone working together and putting aside their aches and pains and personal whatever they're carrying with them, put it all aside, and everyone work together and paddle together for the good of the whole. And the good is getting to that beautiful island on the other side of the river or wherever.
That's beautiful. And I guess explain the lower Mississippi to me in your own words. I've experienced it and have a love of it for myself, of the whole river. But I'd be interested to hear your interpretation of explaining the lower Mississippi to somebody who maybe had never thought about it other than a big ditch or who knows what they say, what other disparaging things they say about our river.
Right. Well, most people know the Mississippi River from what they've seen from their drive over an interstate bridge, at a big city. And they think that's Mississippi is what they saw in St. Louis or Memphis or wherever, or they flew over it maybe. But the lower Mississippi is the last almost 1,000 miles of river from the mouth of the Ohio at southern Illinois. It's right at the very tip of Illinois, Cairo, Illinois, or Cairo as they pronounce it in the town. And it's 954 miles to be exact. And when the Ohio and the Mississippi meet, the Mississippi is a muddy river. It carries the sediment of the western states from the big muddy Missouri River, and the tannin waters of the upper Miss. The mud seems to win out every time. The Missouri brings in all the mud, and the river becomes a muddy river. When the Ohio comes in, it's kind of a greenish color, and but the mud wins out once again and so where the Mississippi and Ohio meet is one of the widest places on the river. Like at any water stage, it's a mile and a half wide right there, and the rivers it stays muddy on one side and kind of greenish on the other for a long way, and finally they mix, miles downstream, and the character of both rivers change and become something new. And that something is the biggest river in North America, flowing with great exuberance and power, because those combined rivers become very powerful, and there's a lot of turbulence. Even at low water, you see it, boils and eddies and big, powerful motions of water that regularly are rising or falling, from low water to high water, sometimes 40, 50, sometimes 60 feet, like in a flood year. And the river below, on the lower Mississippi is so powerful that they have to move the levees way out, and when it comes up, it floods a big area, and no one except in a few special places builds right on the river like you used to be able to do on the Ohio or the upper Miss. You find towns right down on the banks of the river,
right,
on the upper Mississippi and the Ohio River, but you can't do that any longer down when you get down in our stretch of river. And the reason is because the river is so powerful that it regularly floods anything near it, and sometimes tears things out, and so the water combines and gurgles and boils and eddies and powerfully flows along around big meandering bends. All the bends get bigger. Everything gets bigger. The distance between the banks, of course, and the distance from the depth of the river gets deeper, and the distance going around the bends gets longer and longer. The meanders, and there's one bend. It's at New Madrid, Missouri. You probably remember it well because it takes to get 1 mile further in your direction, which is south, going towards the Gulf of Mexico. You have to go over 20 miles around a big bend of river. It's so big you can clearly see it from space. And
it's a big river.
Within that, Yeah. So it's a land of superlatives. It's the has the richest fishery, inland fishery in North America. More species of fish and more fish than any other body of water, and more birds. It's the most important flyway for the songbirds that come out of South America. 60% of America's songbirds use the Mississippi flyway, and something like 44% of the waterfowl, migrating waterfowl, like
Yep.
geese and pelicans and terns. But it's also an important migratory route for insects like the monarch butterfly and crustaceans like the freshwater shrimp, which move along at the bottom of the river and have a mysterious migration. We don't know a lot about the freshwater shrimp, which used to be very common on the big river. On the steamboats, it was a delicacy, kind of like crawdads are today. People used to eat freshwater shrimps, and they've declined some, but they're still there, and they travel along the bottom of the river, crawling slowly upstream or migrating back downstream. And they're clear, so you can hold them up and you can see through them, especially if you hold it up to the sun or something. And the American eel, it actually has the longest migration of any fish in the Mississippi. Its life cycle begins in the Sargassum Sea, and the eel return to their place of river of origin, and that could be the Susquehanna River, but it could be the Mississippi. Yeah, any of the Atlantic eel in North America all propagate from origin in the Sargassum Sea.
Wow.
And so the Mississippi eel, they go, anywhere the water flows, they go. And the white-tailed deer, it's the richest habitat for white-tailed deer in North America. And it's a tough world for Mother Nature. We're not doing a very good job of taking care of our Mother Earth, and we're having trouble all over with creatures, just surviving this new world. And the Mississippi has become the refuge for a lot of creatures that live near the floodplain, who are getting pushed out of wetlands that are being turned into
what creatures?
More suburbia. Black bear is one.
Yep.
The Louisiana black bear, it used to be endangered down here, and they've delisted it. It's now because the lowlands of the Mississippi River, especially where the Arkansas and White River come in. There's about 500,000 acres of land, protected lands there. And the black bear has recovered and is growing in numbers now. And the least interior tern, they migrate out of Patagonia, and they used to carry on their nesting in big numbers along the Mississippi Gulf Coast. But because of habitat loss on the Gulf Coast, which are very popular, among vacationers, and rising seas and land disappearing into the Gulf, at the mouth of the Mississippi especially, they have had to look elsewhere, and they were listed as an endangered species, and but they discovered the big islands of the Mississippi River, excuse me, and the giant sandbars, which are like beach-sized islands, and they've made a recovery actually on the big islands, like by the thousands. And in the past couple of years. Like they've been studying the numbers for over a decade, and the numbers keep getting bigger and bigger. And
That's great.
And a couple of years ago, delisted the least interior turn.
It's a wild
So,
place out there, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we love that one.
How did you come to create River Gator? And my understanding of it is it's essentially like a mile by mile paddler's guide of the lower Mississippi. Is that fair?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's it exactly.
I mean, that's on top of everything else you got going. That's a depth of a project right there. I mean, you already said it was 950 some miles, nearly 1,000 miles, and this this guide that you've created goes mile by mile, more or less.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's through hands-on knowledge. You know, I've paddled it many times, that stretch of river, but when we started River Gator in 2011, me and my team of Mighty Quapaws here in Clarksville, we went out to the river and started exploring it, taking notes and photographs and GPS tagging things.
With the goal of creating this paddler's guide?
That's correct. Yeah. Like all things on the big river, it's hard to do it small. We started out with one section of river, what we call the Muddy Waters Wilderness. It's 126 miles from Helena, Arkansas to Greenville, Mississippi, and it goes through the wildest and we think the most beautiful stretch of the lower Miss. And it's kind of like the heart of the lower Miss because it's where the Arkansas comes in and big islands and giant forests but that's the River Gator actually started as a project to describe that 126 miles. And, but we finished that in 1 year. And then we were like, wait a minute, we need to do better than that. We need to describe what happens after that, and wait a minute, we better cover Memphis down to Helena, and then it was like, well, we better go up a little further north because paddlers need to know what to do as they're coming into Memphis. And, it just grew every year. It got bigger and bigger. And then finally we realized, well, we better do the whole thing or, it's not worth doing at all.
Man.
So it turned into 10 sections. We split it up into 10 sections. And one of those is the Chapalaya route to the Gulf of Mexico. And we also created 10 maps depicting all of those sections also. And I still have one more map to do. These are watercolors that we make into usable river maps, with mileage and useful information.
Amazing.
And lastly, I need to go and spend about a year turning everything you see online and condensing it. There's 1 million words. It's too wordy. And to condense it into, a hardbound copy.
That'd be great.
So, yeah.
Yeah, that's neat, man. It's do you consider yourself like a analytical or mile by mile person? Because I think about doing that and it's like, oh man, like I can't, it's so I guess detailed or my brain just doesn't work that way. I'm like, all right, I'm just gonna put in, float on, and see what happens.
No, I'm not. I'm a kind of a right brain mind, but to be helpful, we had to key it into the actual mileage on the river, and we call it mile by mile. But there are some stretches that you don't need to describe 10 miles of barges tied up on the bank, that you see below Baton Rouge or rocks and revetment. Once you describe a revetment, you don't need to do that again.
Sure.
So that's just a way of describing it. Really, it focuses on the best, the best and wildest islands and the stretches of river, and a little bit about the towns and the culture along the way, but not a lot. It's mostly focused on the river and its the natural landscape and information that's useful to paddlers.
And so this 126-ish, if I recall, mile section that you say is your favorite. What'd you call that one?
The Muddy Waters Wilderness.
Muddy Waters Wilderness. I love it. And why is that your favorite section?
Well, number one, when you're shuttling out to it from our downtown Clarksdale location, we passed by the site where Muddy Waters lived for 25 years.
Oh, neat.
Before going to Chicago and becoming the king of the blues. He lived with his grandmother on a plantation just outside of Clarksdale called Stovall. And our route actually takes us past that location. And we often make a tribute to the king of the Chicago blues on our way out, you know.
So not to interrupt you here, but I will. I picked up Muddy Waters on my trip in Memphis. I went to, I guess, what's the Hall of Fame there? Is it the Blues Hall of Fame?
Blues Hall of Fame.
Yeah. I went there and I, picked up some blues music. I'd always been into blues. I think I had a few Muddy Waters records as a kid because I play harmonica. And so always been, in love with blues and just that stuff, but never real in depth, pretty shallow. And so, yeah, I picked up Muddy Waters and I don't even remember who else I picked up, but on my trip to Memphis when I was paddling the river. So I always connect the two, the river and Muddy Waters, just as you are.
Yeah. Yeah. And he wrote some fantastic songs and lyrics and just the rhythmic propulsion of his music. Somehow he really brings the character of the big river alive in his music. But the stretch of river,
right.
Kind of like the blues, it's a spiritual journey into a twisty, windy stretch of river that there are no towns along the way, and your experience out there on the river is of giant, uninhabited by humans, islands, and a big river and big sky. And after a while, you spend a day or two on this stretch of river, and you start getting the feeling that the land that you're in is something like the Amazon. It feels like the forest must go on forever, and the river becomes this very inspiring living highway of motion and colors and sounds, and it's kind of like entering a whole different perspective, or what would you call it? It's like entering a whole nother dimension, I guess. And we call it the when we go over the levee, we guides, and our clients usually agree with this too. We feel like we're leaving a surreal world behind when we leave civilization, go over the levee into the wild landscape of the big river, big forests. Those floodplain forests have the biggest trees in Mississippi. And we feel like we're entering what is truly the reality. It's a place where things are working, where things are in balance. And humans, maybe for the lack of humans, are in balance with the rest of creation. We're not, and there's no command and follow kind of thing going on, and there are no straight lines. Everything is moving around the bend, or towards the horizon. And the canoe itself is like that. There's no straight lines in a canoe. The lines are always curving towards some direction. So it's more of that it's not a designated U.S. wilderness area, but and there are towboats, passing through, but they're kind of like Starship Enterprise passing by or something. They're in a whole other world themselves.
Yep.
They come and go like freight trains.
Yeah, I know the feeling, and I know the feeling that you're describing too. I feel the same way when I'm out there. Just feels doesn't matter where I am, whether it's middle of the river, the nearest forest preserve, or as far as you can get from the road and wherever you are. It's it's weird how it just is calming and feels like things are just working in the right order in a way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, everything is contiguous and wholesome, and it's a place where I rediscovered myself when I started spending time on the river. I rediscovered myself, and I felt a wholeness there and a completeness, and it was the first place I'd ever been that I didn't want to be somewhere else. And that kind of feeling has continued to this very day, even though I've been living on or near the river for decades now. I still get that same feeling when I'm over the levee, and so that quality of river, people have been writing about that and singing songs and painting paintings, for a long time about this same thing. But on the Mississippi, it's and especially on the lower Mississippi, it's such a big river, and that it brings all those qualities to, I think, kind of a fullness that you don't experience everywhere. Maybe on the Amazon or the Congo or some other big muddy river, you would feel that same thing. Or maybe some of those northern rivers, the Yukon or something.
I've been up on the Yukon, and I can confirm it's a similar feeling, my friend.
Good to hear.
Explore the beautiful and rugged Wyoming backcountry with Soda Peak Outfitters in Moran, Wyoming, just down the road from world-famous Jackson Hole. SodaPeakOutfitters.com is the team to talk to get off the beaten path and into an unforgettable wilderness experience. Nestled in the heart of the greater Yellowstone area, Soda Peak calls Bridger Teton National Forest and the Teton Wilderness home. They specialize in guided and DIY fishing and pack trips into some of the most pristine and remote wilderness and water that the lower 48 has to offer. Pack trips by horse, mule, or llama make getting deep into the rugged backcountry doable and makes it a Western adventure in itself. I know one of the trips that I'd love to do is their thoroughfare fishing trip, where with a horse pack team, they take you into the headwaters of the famed Yellowstone River to fish and explore over 5 days. Untouched water, rising trout on a summer morning. Yeah, that sounds right up my alley. They also offer a single-day guided fishing trips as well as trail rides and more. Their pack trips are a great way to disconnect with civilization and reconnect with nature and the mountains. Charles is one of the owners there and the guy to talk to. He can help you tailor a custom trip or get you signed up for any of their classic adventures. Check them out at SodaPeakOutfitters.com. That's soda like the drink, peakoutfitters.com, or give Charles an email at charles@SodaPeakOutfitters.com and use code BR2024 at checkout for 5% off any trip you take with Soda Peak. That's BR as in Buffalo Roamer 2024.
Experience true Wyoming wilderness with Soda Peak Outfitters. Hey, it's Will here. I want to take a moment to let you know about our show sponsor and partner, Fischel Paddles, makers of fine, handcrafted wooden canoe paddles. I spent a lot of time paddling rivers and lakes, and Fischel paddles are the best canoe paddles that I've come across. I use the Ray Special model myself, and I outfit all the guided trips that I run with Fischel paddles too, because I think they're the best. Each paddle is handmade by Greg Fischel at his shop in Flagstaff, Arizona, from a single piece of wood. What I love most is the shape and feel of the paddle. Other than being beautiful and efficient, it puts less strain on your shoulders and arms than a typical paddle would, while actually giving you more control and finesse with each stroke. Plus, the shape of the blade just feels right cutting through the water. All paddles are customizable from the type of wood, whether that's cherry, ash, or maple, to laser engravings, and my favorite, which is the leather strap that Greg pins around the shaft so that it doesn't get beat up as you run along the gunnels, prying off or doing the J-stroke in the back of the stern there. So go get yourself a Fischel paddle now and feel the difference. Use the code WILL at checkout. That's WILL to get a free wooden paddle hanger with any paddle purchase. That way you can show off and organize that new handmade paddle. Check them out at FischelPaddles.com. That's FISHELL paddles.com. Fischel Paddles, handcrafted wooden canoe paddles. How about like the Wild Miles? I mean, this is kind of what we're talking about right now, but I know that's kind of an independent thing included with the project, but also just thing you were doing. Boyce Uphold, the author of The Great River, was telling me about it. What exactly are the Wild Miles, and you know, what do you do with them, I guess, or what? I guess just what is it?
Yeah, well, it's pretty simple. It's something I put together with Mike Clark of St. Louis. Who did you run into him? Big Muddy Mike.
You know, funny enough, I did simply by happenstance when I was passing through the port of St. Louis. He was in his big Voyager canoe. Right when I think I was putting in. And he was right there, and he just gave me a few words of advice about traversing the port of St. Louis. And I didn't chat with him too long, but it's funny that I ran into him. Another true character of the river, huh?
Yeah, river coincidence. We call that the river coincidence.
That's right.
Yeah. Well, he and I are old friends, and we put it together through qualitative assessment of the river, again, mile by mile, because we did it from our canoes as we were paddling along, keeping notes. And if on any stretch of river that we were paddling, and he's mostly on the middle Mississippi, or below St. Louis, that's 180 miles from St. Louis to Cairo, Illinois, and me on the lower Mississippi. What we did is, if on any stretch of river we did not see any signs of mankind, save maybe a passing towboat or a buoy, or maybe a passing fishing boat, then that was a wild mile. If there was no industry, no port, no grain elevator, no flashing lights, towers or power lines, and no steel mills or power plants or anything like that, then that was a wild mile. It was a place where you were surrounded by what looked like total wilderness, because you saw nothing but trees and the water and the sky. But if you were in a stretch of river where you saw one of those things that I described earlier, then that was a not wild mile. And so we kept notes, and it took years to develop it. But we did it, from our canoes, from the seat of the canoe. If you go up 100 feet, then you're going to see a lot more than you see from a canoe. Or
sure.
But this, it was focused on the experience of the paddler and what the paddler is actually experiencing, sitting in a canoe, just a foot above the water level as you paddle along. And the results of it were kind of surprising. On the middle Mississippi, from St. Louis to Cairo, Illinois, it was 50 something percent, 57 or something percent of the river was wild. But once you got below Cairo, all the way down to St. Francisville, Louisiana, and I should say we excluded the port of St. Louis in the middle Mississippi. So it's everything below that last bridge in St. Louis. And on the lower Mississippi, we did the survey from Cairo, Illinois, down to St. Francisville, Louisiana. Because below St. Francisville, you enter, you quickly come into Baton Rouge, and then you enter Chemical Corridor, and that's like there's no wild miles down there. Well, actually, surprisingly, there are a few places it does feel pretty wild. But on the lower Mississippi, we found like 70% of the river was felt wild. From the experience of a paddler.
Wow.
So that we completed that years ago, decades ago, and it's just a website, wildmiles.org. We did it as just a simple way of looking at the river, and it's actually proved really useful to a lot of people, who are trying to decide where to go on the river, and also to some people researching the river, wanting to either do like academic research or someone who is writing about the river, like Boyce. And now, the sad news is that since we put together the wild miles, we've been losing wild miles.
Sure.
And maybe we gained in a couple places, but they're pretty limited. Like after the 2011 flood, there were some honey camps that were washed out. And there were some places, I know one oil dock that was rendered useless by the 2011 flood, highest water since 1927. But we've also had some major developments, and one of those places is northeastern Arkansas. They're doing some big time industrial development there. Steel mills, U.S. Steel, and Nucor, a Japanese, biggest steel company in the world, and a power plant to help supply, power to those. We're talking thousands of workers, thousands of employees who are keeping those places going, and it's totally changed what used to be a section of Wild Miles. Around Plum Point, Arkansas, coming into the first Chickasaw Bluff, right below Osceola, Arkansas. And, the good news for Mississippi County, Arkansas, is they got 5,000 jobs that they didn't used to have,
Right.
And suddenly tax base is looking great. The bad news is that we lost something like Yellowstone, that'd be like putting a power plant on the edge of the Grand Canyon, and it ruined the river for about 10 miles at least 10 miles, maybe more. For its for that quality of wildness, which is not just a quality when you are a winged creature like a migrating bird or a fish that is depositing eggs. or a monarch butterfly passing through, or it's not just a qualitative thing. That's that's your home, and your very existence depends on the water quality in that area, and the quality of the forest, and so it's a
Changing landscape.
complicated. What's that?
I said a changing landscape.
Yeah.
I guess that's life in a way, huh?
What's that?
I said I guess that's life in a way.
Yeah. You're having that same kind of controversy all over North America, and probably all over the world. But it's a complicated world,
Yep.
Do you, everyone has to make decisions about what is the quality of life and what are the important things in life. But alls we ask, Big Muddy Mike and myself in the Wild Miles, is to consider the rest of creation who are inhabiting this this vibrant floodplain of the lower Mississippi River. And instead of building the next power plant or industry in a place that's wild, that's already wild, why not do it in a place that is not wild, like the harbor? That could have been done in the Osceola Harbor or the Memphis Harbor or near Cairo, Illinois, or, there are a lot of places that there's already industry. And why not do it there? There's already infrastructure and highways and electricity and of course you have the water. Everyone needs water, and
that's very true.
Mississippi provides that where you go.
How many times would you reckon, or how many times have you paddled the lower Mississippi or the entire Mississippi? You said you washed up ashore on an island, on Cat Island, the first time you tried, and you have the river gator, so you've got every mile. Have you done the entire lower Mississippi? And how many times would you say you have, if you had to guess?
Let's see, like in contiguous trips, maybe a dozen times.
Okay.
But my experience is mostly, shorter sections of it.
Sure.
The middle Mississippi, or stretches, into Memphis from Tennessee or Missouri, or even Kentucky, and stretches from here through the Delta going downstream. And we often start trips in Memphis and end up down here, or start trips in Vicksburg or St. Francisville and go on downstream, into the Chapalaya or the main stem exit through New Orleans.
It's awesome. It's a big playground.
It is playground, church, classroom. It's everything. It's life. But we're on the river 200 to 300 days a year, me and my crew, in busy years, and slow years 100 to 200 days. And
that's taking people out, the school children, other people, other groups, just anyone who wants to go on an adventure on the Mighty Miss, huh?
That is correct. Yeah, we're a custom outfit, so we leave it up to our clients to pick the trip, or we get people who are doing church groups or team building. Corporations doing team building, and we get a lot of naturalists, birders, and people studying the river for one reason or the other. But also family reunions, and wedding parties, bachelor trips, or honeymoons. We've dropped a few people off on an island, a remote island, with an ideal campsite, and came back, a week later and picked them up, and that was their honeymoon.
That's awesome. Sounds like a great honeymoon.
And everyone I know who's done it, they had a good one, and they're still married. And a
That's
And
great.
a lot of youth groups, after school programs, school groups. We get kids from all over America, but especially from the mid and deep South, and church groups also.
That's amazing. What do you got next coming up that you're looking forward to? You got all these projects. You got anything that's burning, or the passion fire that's burning? A project that you're working on? Obviously, the Quapaw Canoe Company just running things.
We have a big canoe that we need to finish in the workshop. The Dragonfly, we're calling her. You know, the vessels are all female. There are exceptions to that, actually, but and I want to put River Gator into print,
Right, that'd be great.
hard copy in the next year or two. And I'm working actually on a triptych, a painting describing the Fourth Chickasaw Bluff, which is where Memphis sits, in a painting for a health a group of a clinic in Memphis, and that will is depicting the Fourth Chickasaw Bluff before Homo sapiens. So that's a neat imagination project. And me and my team, we are doing a self-evaluation. We've been operating for 26 years.
Wow.
And so we are actually getting ready to do a self-evaluation that's going to include my whole team of Mighty Quapaws. And one of them is Sarah Lint. And she is actually right now paddling through your stretch of river.
Nice.
That's her summer activity she put in at the headwaters, Lake Itasca, and she's paddling to Hannibal this summer.
Great.
And another one of my guides, Kaylee Hale, we call her Mayfly. She joined Sarah for a week of paddling. But we'll all come back together here in another couple of weeks, and we're going to do a self-evaluation that's led by a business savvy guy to reassess everything we've done and to make plans for the next 25 years.
Great.
And it might end up in something like an employee-owned company. Because I'm the old turtle on the crew, and I'm kind of I've been pushing the boulder up the mountain a long time, and I'm ready for someone else to take the teller and run with it. You know, so
I hear you, man.
I got all these youngsters around me, and I'm hoping to find a pathway forward so that because it's a changing world when it comes to communication and. I'm not changing with it. I'm still old style.
Well, hey man, it sounds like it's been working for you, and I think that's pretty exciting to be able to do something that I can tell, enjoy, and love for 25 years, and then to be able to take a pause and say, hey, how are we going to make this thing viable and fruitful for the community and for us for the next 25 years? So I think that's definitely something to look forward to. It's a big task, as I'm sure it sounds like in your heartfelt explanation there, that maybe you've been thinking about it. So but yeah, it's an exciting opportunity to have. So that's neat.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're exactly right. We feel like it's a blessing every day to be able to do what we do, but we want to do it better, and we can always make it better.
Hey, amen. Well, John, I've appreciated catching up with you, man. We're gonna wind it down here. Is there anything I didn't touch on that you want to get out there?
I think we've covered it all. I really appreciate your time and attention to our queen. The Big River.
That's right.
We call her the queen. We're just the worker bees. And I hope our paths cross. I'm sure they will. We already have. The river has already brought us together. I look forward to seeing you sometime in person on the river. And and to send out a blessing to you and your audience. And that's something that we say that wherever you are, wherever the sun is rising on you or the moon setting, and the winds be at your back, and may the river be with you.
Hey, man, beautiful. I'll accept it, and may the river be with you as well. And keep doing what you're doing. As you mentioned, we both, I have a love for the Mighty Mist too, and so I try and do my little part here and there. And you're carrying the mantle, so keep doing what you're doing, and look forward to connecting sometime, man.
Okay, awesome.
And there you have it, episode 95 with John Ruskey on Buffalo Roamer Outdoors. Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoy it, give it a 5-star rating or a review in Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Check out BuffaloRoamer.com. Join me on a river adventure on the Mississippi or other rivers across the U.S. Would love to get on the water with you. Go check out Quapaw Canoe Company and join John and crew on the lower Mississippi. Sounds like a blast. And if nothing else, go outside, get some fresh air. We'll see you downriver.